Good morning. There's a story of a fellow who had a splitting headache and had done all he could to try and remedy it and get over it. Nothing he did helped. So he turned up to the doctor's office and was taken into the surgery. The doctor asked him, "What can I do for you?" And he said, "I've got this splitting headache and nothing I've done seems to make any difference." "Okay," says the doctor. Asks a few questions and then says, "I've got 3 more questions I need to ask you. Do you partake of alcohol? Do you drink alcohol?" And the man says, "Of course not, doctor, of course not. I wouldn't touch that demon drink, that evil stuff. It's never touched my lips." "Okay," says the doctor, "fair enough. Second question, do you smoke? Have you ever smoked?" "Oh, doctor, how could you ask that? That filthy stuff has never passed my lips. Oh, it's disgusting." "Okay," says the doctor. "Look, this last question is a bit tricky, but I've got to ask it. You know, some men play around with ladies, get up to stuff at night. Do you?" "Oh, doctor, I'm horrified that you could even suggest that. I'm a man of very controlled and ordered activities. I'm in bed every night at 10 o'clock and I'm no ladies' man." Good, says the doctor. "I think I'm getting somewhere. This pain, is it kind of a really hard pressing pain at the back of your head, like something's pressing in hard?" He said, "That's it. That's what it's like, doc. What can you do?" And he says, I think I've got the solution. The problem is your halo's too tight, and if we can just loosen it a bit, I think you'll be okay." I remember when I first read that story, I laughed as I thought of the people that it applied to. People who are self-righteous and judgmental and arrogant, not like me, you know. And even as I thought through that, it became obvious that I'm exactly like that. The process of me putting labels onto people that they fit into this story, that they are that man, makes me exactly like him and like them. We get defensive and we put things onto other people to put them down, to make ourselves feel and look better about who we are. And it's even worse in groups. When a group wants to find its identity and it's not quite sure, and it can look at other people and say, "We're not like that. We're not like them, whoever them is. Look at us." And we can scapegoat other people. It's a particular, strategy of leaders, particularly national leaders, where they want to unite people, so they create a common enemy, a scapegoating group. We're not like them. Look at us. We're not like that. We don't look like that. We don't think like that. We don't act like that. We don't believe those things. Look at us. It happens in religious groups, in political groups, in all sorts of groups, in families, in groups looking at other people. And it leads to most of the conflicts and struggles between individuals and between groups of people and between nations in our world. It causes a lot of problems. I've been wrestling with some of that this week as I've read Luke's story of Jesus. This Pharisee goes up to the temple to pray. He's a holy man, he's a religious person. And so the people would be expecting big things of him. But like so many of the stories that Jesus tells, it turns things upside down. This man goes in, he looks up and in the public space and says, "God, thank you that I'm such a great person, that I give so much money and I do this and I do that and I tithe and I fast and I pray and I'm so good. Thank you that I'm so good." That was the essence of his prayer. Thank you that I'm such a good person. Not like the sinners and the adulterers and like that tax collector over there. And Jesus says the tax collector came in. He didn't go into the public place. He stood by himself. He looked down and he beat his breast, which is a sign of remorse and shame and guilt. And he would not look up, and he said, "Lord, forgive me, have mercy on me, a sinner." And Jesus says, it was that man who went home justified before God, not the Pharisee. Because that was the man who recognized his own need, his own failure to live in a way that was true and right and fully good, gracious and loving. He recognized that he couldn't do it. Now, he might go out tomorrow and rip off another whole bunch of people, and the next day and the next day and next week, but come back to the temple and pray that prayer, and every time he prays that prayer, genuine prayer, there is justification and forgiveness. And the recognition that he can't do it. He can't do it alone. He needs grace. He was humbled. And he went home right before God, healed in that time, in that moment, before he falls and fails again, like we all do. Whereas the Pharisee was absolutely true in what he said. God, I'm not like that person. I'm not like them. I'm not like them. I am a really good person who does the good thing, who does the right thing. But there was no sense that he also does the wrong thing. There's no sense that in looking down at the other, judging the sinners, the adulterers, the tax collectors, the prostitutes, the whoever, putting them down and casting them aside is wrong. That's not loving. That's not what he's called to be. And he won't get everything right. He may do many things well and true and right and better than the tax collector. But he doesn't acknowledge that he himself is not perfect and there's failure within him. And so he never grows, he never moves beyond that. He never becomes more deeply who he can be. He's lost in his arrogance and his ego. And I guess that's a problem for many, many people. Our ego is really strong and tries to control things. It gets very defensive when we're challenged, when we're threatened, when someone questions us, when we don't look as good as someone else. Our ego goes into overdrive to judge, to put them down, to knock them over in order for us to feel better about ourselves and put ourselves back up on a pedestal. And Jesus says that's not helpful. It's not healthy, and it's not the way, not only not the way of God, but it's not the way of life and freedom and hope. It's not the way of faith, hope and love. It's not the way to become more truly who we are. And I know in myself, there are times when I do put the other down. I do look at someone else and think, oh, I'm not like that. Or, gosh, look at them. Or, oh, I hate that evil. They're an evil person. Or, I guess it's natural. And I collude with others to define ourselves by who we are and what we're not. We're not like them or them or them. And putting them down. And when I do, I know that I'm like the Pharisee. And I know that I'm failing. And it doesn't leave me with a good feeling. It feels conflicted within me. And it doesn't allow me to be in relationship with other people. What I recognize is that humility, that pushing the ego down, not listening to the ego, of becoming humble and recognizing, like the tax collector, that I don't get it right. I don't know all the answers. I don't know what I don't know. And I need God's love and grace. And when I do, I'm more open to being in relationship with other people. There's a guy who came to the church office once. He talked to there was a woman that opened the door for him, and he said, look, I need some help. Can I talk to someone? So she brought me in to talk to him. I said, do you want a coffee? Or he looked a bit anxious, and he said, yeah. Have you got anything to eat? I'm a bit hungry. I said, mate, we've only got biscuits, but happy to give you some. And he said, that'd be fine, anything. So we got a couple of coffees and a plate of biscuits, and we talked a bit while he drank and munched away. I said, you need some help. What sort of help do you need? And he said, I need some money. And I said, well, we don't keep money here, we don't have money here, and we don't deal with money, but what do you need it for? What particularly do you need the money for? And he said, well, I don't get my check till next week, and I've run out of food. I need to buy some food. I'm hungry. I said, we can help you with groceries. We've got plenty of groceries there. I'll give you a couple of weeks worth of groceries. If you need more, come back. We can do that. What else do you need the money for? And he said, I've got some bills that I haven't been able to pay, electricity and things like that. I said, look, we can't help with that, but I know who can. I'll organise for you to go and talk with them and get some help. Anyway, he finished his coffee, and I said, you want another one? Yeah, can I? Yeah. So while he drank his second one, we had a chat. And I can't remember how we got into it, but he sort of loosened up a bit, and he shared that he'd been a drug addict. He'd been addicted to drugs, particularly heroin, and it had ruined his life, totally devastated him. He'd managed to, with the help of programs and support programs and people and some methadone program, he'd gotten off it, and he was off the methadone, and he was intent on making something of his life, of moving on. I asked him, what got you onto drugs in the first place? And he shared his story, how he was young and life was tough. He was having problems with other people, parents, and if these mates he had started using, and they said, this is really good stuff. This will make you feel better than you've ever felt before. Try some. And finally he gave in and he tried some, and he said it did. It made me feel better than I'd ever thought before. It was great. And I tried it a few times, not that often, but the more I tried it, the more I liked it. And so I started taking more and more. And before I realised it, it was not making me feel better. It was stopping me feeling bad. The withdrawal symptoms and the addiction had taken hold, and I felt bad all the time until I took some drug. And I'm ashamed of things I've done, ripped off friends and family, particularly my parents. In one particular time when I was so desperate, I pawned the only valuable thing I had. Not valuable in money terms, but a prized possession, my guitar. I pawned it because I was absolutely desperate. And he shared something of his story, and I listened and felt his pain and the struggle of his life. And when he finished, I offered a prayer and a blessing and any help we could offer him. We got him the food and put him in contact with people who could help him with the bills, and said, come back if you need anything, if you need more help. And I think he came back a few times for food. But as I thought of that story, he was an addict, and I know that previously he's the sort of person I might have looked down on. I'm not like that person. I'm not like him. And yet, aren't we all? I might not take drugs, and I may not have descended to the depths that he did, but I don't get it right a lot of the time. And I have my own little addictions, like we all do. And I need grace just like he does, just like the tax collector. The grace that God gives, the grace that lifts us up and gives us life. And that's the promise of God. You receive that? Amen.